Hey everyone, it's Draconian Rain, and I am back with a super late part 2 to my first video about the latest version of OpenCanvas, OpenCanvas 7. I want to start off by apologizing for any background noise that you might hear. I live on a main road and today it happens to be raining, so there's a lot of cars going by, and I hope that it's not too distracting or annoying. In my previous video, I mentioned how the event file often wouldn't work or crash, and I had actually already fully recorded the entire process of this video and then lost everything. But that ended up turning out to be a good thing because it gave me a good reason to record the event file, which is what you're seeing right now. As I was recording it, it didn't slow down, it didn't crash. I mean, of course it was a little bit slower, but nothing too drastic. And as you're watching this now, this is how long the actual event file took. It's not sped up any faster, it's not slowed down. This is just a raw recording of the event file in action. And I am super pleased with how well it's doing, because previously I had tried to screen record my event files playing of past drawings, and it did not go well at all. Something went wrong, or it would crash, or it would make the screen recorder crash, or it was awful. This doesn't seem to be an issue in OpenCanvas 7, which I'm super pleased about, because as I mentioned before in the previous video, one of my most favorite features of OpenCanvas 7 was the event file, and I've used quite a lot of other programs that have tried to do the same thing, and they haven't quite lived up to the standard of OpenCanvas. The only current two exceptions are apps for iPad, and that's Procreate and their time-lapse feature, and Ibis Paint. They do it very much like OpenCanvas, and they've actually done a pretty good job. And it's a feature that I love using because it helps me to realize what kind of mistakes I've done, and it's not always convenient or easy to just set up screen recording to record a process and then rewatch it again later. Just sometimes having it in an event file and having it already sped up for you so you can just quickly review what you've done and where you've gone wrong is just so much more convenient. And it was definitely a huge factor in what made me grow and progress as fast as I did in the earlier stages of my art. And it helped me so much to learn digital painting, different techniques and different skills a lot faster than if I just had kept going and tried to figure it all out the hard way. Anyway, as I kept using the program, I started to notice more things about it, and one of the things I've always loved was the types of brushes available and the range of brushes that they have for use and creation. They still have a lot of brushes to choose from, but it seems like there's not just more options for changing and creating brushes, but there are better options to make better brushes than compared to previous other versions. With the changes made to the brushes and the way in which you can edit them, it's greatly improved the overall user experience and painting experience within the software. But the improvements haven't actually stopped there. The ability to create textures and use them for anything that you can possibly think of, much like you would in Photoshop, has become a lot easier to do in OpenCanvas 7. You can also very easily create your own textures or patterns or shapes to use for brushes, for custom brushes to make drawing easier or simpler, much like a basic chain brush, which is pretty popular to use, or a flower chain brush. Before this, it wasn't so much that it was difficult to create, it just quite often had very unexpected results and wouldn't quite work the way that you wanted it to or would expect it to. These issues seem to have been addressed and fixed. At the end of this video, I very quickly and easily create a rough texture. Then I set it to overlay, decrease the opacity, and I create a somewhat of a paper look and feel to it. And that was something I used to love doing to all of my paintings, especially in the earliest stages of my digital art and what I was learning at the time, and I had kind of just started to get into using textures. But when I try and do this in OpenCanvas, I'm pretty sure it was OpenCanvas version 5, it did not go well. It usually crashed, or the filter just would not work, and I had lots and lots of trouble. But in OpenCanvas 7, no problems whatsoever. It worked how I wanted it to work. It worked immediately, and it applied pretty much perfectly. But in the past, one of the reasons why it didn't work was the image was just too large to be running the filter in the first place. And I knew this, but I pushed the limits anyway. Right now, my image is even larger than when I first started using it. It's probably about 3 times larger than when I started out. And I had no problems whatsoever, so I'm even more pleased to see that fixed and working great and working well, because using paper-like textures or effects is something I frequently do in my personal projects. And even though I don't end up posting most of them, it doesn't mean that I don't use them or use them often. Another change that I really liked was the fact that you could apply symmetry specifically to the pen. This was a bit of a shock to me, but in some ways it kind of wasn't. And using it was the same as using the pen tools in Medibang Paint Pro, and it was just a really nice feature for them to add, and I'm pretty glad that they did. Not that I have anything against using symmetry rulers, but having symmetry in a specific pen is really, really useful, and it's a lot less tedious than rearranging a ruler that's attached to a specific layer. At least when you're using a symmetry pen, you can change the layers and you can draw in symmetry on any layer rather than messing around with settings and then making sure it works and then turning the settings off. It's just a matter of changing the pen. And I don't often use symmetry, but when I do, I really don't like having to constantly play around with settings. I find it really distracting and annoying. But having those settings specific to a pen or several pens, and then just going straight into it, doing what I want, as long as I have it centered wherever it is that I want it centered, there's just no issues at all. You can just get straight to it, draw, change layers, not think about the fact that you're changing layers, and it didn't crash, it didn't slow down, and I'm actually pretty impressed with that, because like I said, I am working on a very, very large image. I'm pretty sure the width of it was well over 3,000 pixels, and I do this for a variety of reasons, but usually when I do and then I decide to use symmetry tools, it crashes. I didn't have any such issue whatsoever, and I used symmetry on more than just a pen. I actually used it with painting too, just to even things out or just quickly blot down some color. And I was pretty impressed with it. I'm really glad to see the feature. All in all, I'm super impressed with all the changes that have been made, and I highly recommend upgrading if you're considering it. If you're thinking about upgrading or buying, definitely use the trial, as they give you 120 days to try it out. And that is so generous, you guys. Like, most companies don't offer 2 months to try out their software. So that pretty much ends it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.